Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the English Module 1 contact classes. The code is ACP English 11. And first of all, compliment of the new year. What we are going to do to discuss today, it's based on the content of our course. So I'll highlight the key points in our course based on the study guide, and a little bit I'll touch on the exam that we are waiting to write in June, in May, August, and November. The information that are in this presentation, not specifically that it's for a certain examination, like for example for August or for May or for November. It's a combination of both examinations. So you must study all the important information that are highlighted in this presentation. Let's start. Petrina Owanga, there is my contact. In my email, you can get hold of me on nwanga@yahoo.com. But what I encourage students to do is to text me, and then I'll come back to them when I get time. So don't try to call. In most cases, I do not pick just because my schedule is too busy. Not that I don't want to pick, but it's my schedule is too busy. So you better text me and I will come back to you. Of course, I always go back to students once they text me. There's no way that you text me and then I'll ignore your text. But if they call, the possibility is very high that I might not pick it. Our course need these materials for us to complete it. You need to have these study guides or the books that will guide you on how to go about answering questions, or to get the knowledge, or to get the detailed content of English Module 1, which is ACP English 11. The first one is Latrin, the book which is written by Latrin and Pincus. I always like to read these names to you so that you make sure that you have the right textbooks when you are preparing either for your assignment or your examination. English handbook and study guide. These books, it's more on grammar usage and literature. If you read the content of this book, there is no any other way that you can go wrong when you are answering your questions which are based on grammar or either the literature part. We also have a study guide which I will have prepared for us. It's a very nice book, but it's very thick. It's a very big book. I know most of you don't have this study guide. I received calls, so students asking where they can get this book. This book is on your portal. You can go there, open it, download it, open it, and print it if you want, or you can read it in soft copy. But I encourage students to print it so that they can have a better reading rather than on the screen. There's also this one, the third one, is written by Thompson in 2001. Is Teaching Primary English, printed by Maclean Teaching Handbook. So this one, it's more on teaching methods. Maybe if you have the past question paper, or you have the assignment, and you meet any question which is about the English teaching methods, this book will guide you nicely on how to go about those questions, or on how to answer those questions. All right, then we proceed. Okay. The first part is just a summary of our study guide, which is written by IOL. Because that the IOL guide, study guide, it try to combine what is in all other books that I have just mentioned. It's almost a combination of all the three books, but you must also have the other one in case the part that you want to look at is not highlighted in the study guides, so you can pick it up from the original textbook. Let's start with the two form of language. The language itself, it have two forms. And what are these two forms? We have formal and informal language. When I ask you to give me two forms of language, then you know it's the informal one and the formal language. The informal language itself, it has its component. These forms of language, it has its own component. These are the components that you need to master or to understand, to know the difference between the two forms of language and what are the components which fall under each component of language or each form of language. The first one, emotive language. Emotive language is an example of informal language. And what is emotive language itself? Emotive language can be either subjective, objective, fact, or opinion. Denotation, connotation, bias, or prejudice. These are the components which fall under emotive language, and emotive language is a component which is under informal language. And those are the type of language that we have there. Those subjective, we know these things, and objective, fact and opinions. Whenever a person is talking about giving his or her own idea, that one is subjective. And subjective, when you are being subjective to a certain point of view, so then we are using what type of language? That one, it's informal language. Subjective is, here I'm trying now to explain each and every component that which fall under emotive language, where we have subjective language, which is a form of a component under emotive language, is a personal and based. It is one of the sided point of view. This one is, as I said, is a personal point of view. For example, if I say, I think, if I say I think, that is my own opinion that I'm trying to express. I think she's clever than all of the classmates. That is my opinion as an individual. Maybe the other person has different opinion from this one, but that one is my opinion. So that one is a type of language that we call it subjective. We proceed. Objective. The objective part, it's when a person is trying to be realistic, based on a certain fact, and that one can be proved. That one is objective language. If I, for example, say, she got 55 in the examination, she did well. So I have a proof that she did well because of 55 that she got in the examination. And one can look at it and see it's a 55 and conclude that that is the reason she was called the best one, because of the 55 that she obtained. All right. Denotation. Denotation is the strict dictionary meaning of a word. Can you see that? Denotation. Denotation is exactly what the word means, as it's stated in the dictionary. And connotation is the emotional and figurative association of surrounding a word. Connotation, these are the expressions or the meanings that we try to give to a certain word. For example, if I say, Tina's participation in the competition was a walk on top of water. Definitely, every individual will have interpretation on this sentence, because what he have said there, it's not clearly stated. A person has played with a language, putting in metaphor and all those type of things, just to create an impressive listening. When a person is listening there, just to create a more meaningful, or try to give more um, to give more, let me say, details to the word. You know, Tina participation is in a competition was just a walk on top of water. One cannot directly pick up what the person wants to say. Those are the type of sentence or words that we can say. Those are connotation. We move to this one is an example of also for denotation. Then participation in a competition did not bring anything. If one has to say straight the sentence straight as the words are used in the dictionary, in this denotation everyone can understand what exactly the person wants to say, not like in connotation where the person put a lot of connotation surrounding the words and person have to infer what really an individual want to say. We continue. The next one is bias and prejudice. This is referred to personal preconceived belief, not based on evidence or fact. There are some things that we believe either maybe in our culture or just believe of our individual, maybe at a certain village or in our group, that this is what it is, but it's just a belief, not exactly, not really that it is. It might be, in most of the case when we have belief, they come our ways. So this is what we call now a bias and being prejudiced. For example, now men are good leaders. Of course, one can say so. Men might be good leaders. They might not also be good leaders. Women can also be good leaders, but because of our bias or prejudice, one can have that belief. And once it always works that way. When you have a belief in something, it will always come your way. So you see men are good leaders, but if you have a balance of the two, so you can be easily conclude that men and women, both of them are good leaders. When you move to the factors, if you look in our guide, there are some factors that we can say they contribute to the language learning of children. When children are learning languages, there are some factors that we consider that they speed up or they might limit the growing of language in our children. What are these factors? We have three of them. We have social factor, we have cognitive, we have so the other one I don't have it here, or linguistic factor. Yes, we have social, cognitive, and linguistic factor. Those are the factors that contribute to the growing of or development of language in our children. I want us to focus more on social factors. Social factor is the social environment where the children live. The environment where your child is has a big impact on the growing or development of your child language. Just imagine if you, perhaps let me say, maybe you speak as a mother of the child, you speak, let me say, kwekwe, all right? And you at home, everybody speak kwekwe, kufap, and you take your child to somebody who is speaking Oshivambo. That child will be speaking Oshivambo. Even the mother is speaking a different language. The child will be speaking Oshivambo because the environment where the child is living, it's surrounded by Oshivambo speakers. And the children pick up the language from the environment. That's where most of the language development of children come from. It doesn't say if you speak Oshivambo, then it's obvious that your kids or your children will be speaking Oshivambo. It will depend on the environment where they are. And that one is what we call social factor. The environment which surround the child, that one has a big impact on the development of the child's language. That's why most of the researchers, they said we must expose our children more to the speakers of the language that we want our children to speak. Like in Namibia, our official language is English. If you want your child to become good or better in English, don't just wait for the school to teach your child to speak English, but you must also try to associate your child with the speaker of that language. You must also let your child play with other children who speak English. Then in that way, the growing or the development of the child's English skill will be higher. Okay, that one is a social environment that we are talking about, where the child is picking up the language very fast. There are some also other factors that I have mentioned here. So as I said, I only want to highlight on this social factor more than the other, but doesn't say that you must not read the other factors also. You must also have the basic knowledge on them, but you must make sure that you understand how the child social factor affect the development of our children more than the others. Okay. Now we move on where we are saying there are different ways that we can use to make our learners love reading. You know, reading is a problem in our country, or perhaps let me say in most of the countries. Children cannot read, but you might find the child is speaking the language very well, but reading it's a challenge. Now, how can we overcome this? That is my question. How can we overcome this? The guide has some points on how we should tackle this issue. But you also yourself, I know I have received a lot of answers from you students when I was marking your assignment in the past examination. You have a lot of good points that maybe we need just to compile a book about it, and then we start implementing these strategies in our schools. Just taking the points from you, have very nice points. Don't always force yourself to recall exactly what is written in the book when you are writing your assignment, or when you are answering your questions, exam questions. Be subjective, as we said there in the previous slide, where we say subjective is to be able to express yourself the way you feel it. There is no wrong or right answer on this one, as long as you know that this is my strategy, this is the way one can use just to help to assist a child on developing up the reading skill. This is the way we should go. Okay, try to have your own points. Even when we are studying, think in your class. Most of you, I know most of us, we are teachers. That's why ACP is for teachers that are improving their study, teachers already. What do you do in your class? Go in your class, be in the environment of your class, think what you do there, and that is what you should put on the paper. Don't try to memorize, but express. Of course, you can give points in the book, but I encourage you students to go beyond the book and try to be creative and come up with your own ideas on how to overcome certain strategy or certain problems in our classroom. This question is asking you your own idea on how to tackle. There are these points that I have just listed up here, but these are my points. These are my own idea. What are your ideas? Please try to come up with as many as you can. You can ask learners to bring their favorite books to school. You know, learners like to read. And the moments they have what they like to read, what is on their hearts, definitely they will enjoy it, rather than just wait for the teacher to give books that that they might not even have interest on. Have a reading corner in your class. I know most of us, our classes, our language classes, there is a certain space which is provided for our learners, especially the first one. When they finish a certain task that we're completing, you send them to the reading corner, they go enjoy. They have that space in your class, a reading corner, and provide any reading material, even newspapers or anything that children can read. So just put it there. They will definitely enjoy each. Ask them to bring their books, put them at the reading corner. Then for sure, then you are motivating them to have that love of reading. You must also have time with your learners. You know, in most cases, I have just observed that in our classes, we are more on completing our task, completing our assessment forms, just finishing the work that we have. But we must also have time to have fun with our learners. For example, have a book instead of learners to read for you. What we do in most cases, we ask learners to read in the class and we award them marks. But also have time to read for them, teachers to as a teacher to read for your learners. Then of course they will enjoy that one, and they need to stimulate the love of reading in them. As we proceed on, there are also different ways of maintaining order in the classroom. What do? Learners are so sometimes try to be fun in the class, trying to do things that teachers are not happy with. You stop them from, they are just children. It's part of them. So they might know that it's wrong, or they might not know that it's wrong. But as a teacher, what strategy or what mechanism do you use to keep order in your class? There, I want you to give me points now. What do you do in your class? And you know, don't tell me that I'll hit them or I'll beat them. You know, our law is against that one. You just caught immediately. Don't give me that point. But tell me what do you do in your class just to maintain order. There are a lot of points that one can talk about. But here are some examples also. For example, display class rules on the wall and read them to the learners every day. Let learners know what is expected from them and what is not expected from them. Read these rules to the learners maybe every morning, or maybe if one of the learner in the class maybe do or break one of those rules, call him or her in front and show them, can you read this one for me? You ask her to read that rule loud in the class, and that one is reminding him or her that what she did is really against the rules of the class. Keep learners always busy. In most cases, we complain that our learners do not behave, don't have manners, they make noise. But how do you expect this? They are at the age of playing, and if you keep them in a class just asking them to be sitting there and watch the wall and be doing nothing, it get boring to them. Keep them busy. Of course, if they are busy, they don't have time to do funny things or to talk to each other or to play in the class. So they'll be busy trying to complete their task. But if you just let them be there doing nothing, so you cannot tell me that they don't have manners. It's only that they are boring. Okay. Names of the disciplined learners can be also displayed on the class wall every Friday. Try to encourage them also to by putting the names of the good learners who were not maybe writing. There are some schools that are having black book. I like that idea. So the moment you are writing your name is written in the black book, so means you have break one of the rule. And learners who did not do anything wrong or were not written in the black book throughout the week, so their names can be displayed somewhere in the class or somewhere in the school hall. That one, of course, will encourage them to try to behave and have their names being displayed there, that everyone can read that they are good learners. Okay? Then we go to spelling. Language, it's a mother body of all the subjects. The moment a child cannot perform in either in English or the other language, maybe the mother tongue, then definitely that child or that learner will be perform poor in the other subjects, because other subjects are about reading, about writing. If a learner cannot read and cannot write, how do you expect that child to perform in social study? How do you expect that child to perform in natural science and so forth? Okay, as teachers, as English teachers, we must make sure that we teach learners how to spell. We teach learners how to read. Okay, spelling is a problem in English language. Most learners struggle with spelling words correctly. There are different ways that teachers can employ. There are different ways teachers can employ in assisting learners to spell correctly. What are these ways? I always say, think before you look at my points that I have just listed for you there. Think of your own classroom, be in the environment inside of your classroom, and think, what is that one as an English teacher? What do you do just to assist your learners to know how to spell? And if you look here, these are slides, and I'm trying to make my points as short as I can so that they can fit in the slide. I cannot have like an essay in the slide. Of course, it will take a lot of pages and then it will make the presentation long. But when you are writing your assignments or when you are writing your examination, answering your examination questions, try to write in an essay form. Don't list points. Don't list points at all. Okay. The points here that we can maybe look at when we're assisting our learners on how to spell. Learners should be exposed to different reading material frequently. Learners must read a lot, must be exposed to different reading materials. Teacher can use spelling game as one of the spelling teaching strategy. You can use games to spell for spelling in your class. Maybe you have like these jumbled words or one omitted letter. So you ask, for example, the word boy, you write B, then slash Y, then they have to think, to guess which word is those letters that are missing. Then that's why they will improve their spelling skills. Then we move to this one, what they call TQLR strategy, which is used to prepare learners for listening activities. There is this strategy which is called TQLR, and this one is for preparing learners for listening activities. First, you must understand what is T stand for, what is Q stand for, what is L stand for, and what is R stand for. In this slide, I try to give you the definition. What are these letters stand for. Just go through it, read it, and understand it, and try to figure out how this strategy work when it comes to listening activities. T stand for tune in, Q stand for question, and L stand for listening, and R for standing for review. Okay, please read this one. Then we move on. We go to ways of creating good learning environment in our classroom. The way our classroom is arranged has also an impact on the way learners learn our language or learn the English language. It says ritualize and pattern positive teachers' behavior, influence performance. The teacher should be a positive role model at all times. Constant and varied exposure to new material encourage quicker and deeper learning. That is the way we arrange, the way we do things in the class. Maybe you are asking your learners to speak English in the class, but you yourself, you do not speak English in the class. So this one is now vice versa. So you are expecting learners to do the same way you are doing things in the class. Speak English in the class, ask, and all those type of things that you must do what your learners want your learners to do, and also expose them to the reading materials. They will pick up the language from the English reading material, and also to the native speaker of the language. There are more points that you can give on that one. Simulation and role play. There are these two, I should say, component or activities that one can use in English lesson, and this one are nicely explained here. A role play is when a person or a learner is acting as if she or he someone else or something else. A child, you ask children to act as some other people, might be nurses from the hospital, so they act out what they do, they treat patient and all those type of things. That is a role play. Simulation is when learners are acting as if they are someone or something else. It's almost like a role play. But in this case, learners can bring items to class to create a realistic environment. In simulation, let me say this. Let me put it this way, make it easy for you. In a role play, you can just ask, oh, who can come and we want a nurse here in front, okay? A child stand up, I'm a nurse. So we want a patient here, so a child stand up, I'm a patient. So then they role play as a nurse trying to assist a patient. But in simulation, they do that as they are doing in role play, but you will see a nurse is wearing outfit of a nurse and having all the necessary equipment that a nurse might have, and a patient, you know. So they bring realistic items to the class. That's where the difference is between the two, to make the environment more realistic. And this one is really helping our learners when it comes to speaking in the class. These are very nice strategies of teaching learners expressing themselves or speak English in the class. There are ways of creating learners speaking confidence. Most of the learners do not have that confidence in speaking English in our classes. You call them, as I said, even say whatever you want to say in the class, so the child will go there, stand and keep quiet. But what are those strategies that one can use? What are those strategies we can use to assist our learners to be able to speak with confidence in the class? I know you have a lot of points. You can come up with your own points from your own classroom environment, or from your any points that you think that can assist learners to develop a confidence in speaking English in the class. Here are some points. Use only English in your classroom. If you say, okay, in our class, this is English lesson, no one should speak any other language apart from English class, then children will be forced to express them in English. And that is, of course, what we want. And the learner should only respond in English, okay? Learner must use English inside and outside. There should be a lot of talking. Put up topics that make learners to express themselves, so that they can also, everyone, make them sit even in group work. Ask them to share ideas. Ask them to tell each other stories. Anything that they want to talk about, of course, they will be able to express themselves. And the moment they start just talking to each other now, talking in their groups, you will see them now, they want to tell the whole class. Even those shy ones, they will try to say a word. And that is, of course, what a teacher is looking for. And always in English, either assignment or examination, I like giving asking students to define some terms. These are key terms when it comes to linguistics. These are key terms when it comes to language learning. Your guide have a clear definition on this one. I just listed, there's a lot of terms that I can bring in your examination for you to define. But here are some that I have just listed. You must know this one, and you must also not ignore the other one that are not listed here. Like phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantics. These are the terms that you must know what are the what is the meaning, and you must also have examples. I always encourage students, don't define a term and just leave it there hanging. Give example also, just to let me know that you really understand what you are saying. Give example, give definition and example also. As we move on, we are now here at what we call communicative language approach. This question was also in your assignment, and I know I received a lot of calls from students asking me, how should we answer this one, how should we go about it. Here are some explanation on what is communicative language approach. Communicative language teaching makes use of really life situations that necessitate communication. Teachers set up a situation that students are likely to encounter in really life. Communicative approach leaves students in suspicion as to the outcome of the class exercise, which will vary according to their reaction and responses. Real life situations change from day to day, and student motivation to learners come from their desire to communicate in meaningful way about meaningful topics. It's just to set up a context where a really life situation or which learners might even experience in their environment or at home. Set up that environment or situation and ask learners to communicate. Of course, in most cases, we take topics from books or from internet that are not even familiar with our learners. Learners are not familiar with, and they find it difficult to express themselves when it comes to those topics. But if you really set up a topic or a situation which is learners might experience either at school or at home that learners might be familiar with, they will have a lot of words to say about it. They will be able to express themselves, and that is what he calls communicative language teaching. Common features of standard language. These are the common. If I ask you to give me the common features of standard language, here are the list of them. Please try to understand them. And then importance of being proficient in English in Namibia. Why do we need to be good in English, proficiency in English in Namibia? So there's a lot of points that we can give here. English is an official language in our country, so there's no ways that you can be able to communicate in places like offices if you cannot be able to express yourself in English. It's one of the entry requirements at the university and so forth. Lesson planning, or the format of our lesson planning. There are common components that are in. I know different schools use different lesson format, but there are some components that appear in each and every format of each and every schools, like the goals, accommodation, closure, and etc. You must know the components that are in lesson format. Be able to know if we are talking about goals, what are those goals and where can I get the goals if I'm busy planning my lesson. Accommodation, what is really do I have to do here. The closure, what is do I have to write here on the closure, or what should I do on the closing of my lesson or concluding. Okay, the characteristic of good listener. What are those characteristics that one need to have for him to be referred to as a good listener? Always pay full attention to your speakers. You have to focus on your mind to what is being said and so forth. Try to take note and don't interrupt and everything. Those are the characteristics of good listener, and those are the characteristics that you should teach your learners to have. When it comes to listening lesson, they must know that this is what we have to do for us to be able to listen very well and pick up what the teacher is saying. 3 basic framework for listening skill. These are the 3 basic framework for listening skill: pre-listening, while listening, and post-listening. Know what is happening, what you should do in pre-listening when you are teaching listening skill to your learners. There are this stage of framework, what you should do in each and every stage, like pre-listening, what should you do, while listening, what learner should you do and what teacher should do, and post-listening, what is that teacher need to do and what is that learners need to do. Importance of authentic materials. You must know these things. Authentic materials, these are just really material. These things are really objectives that we bring to class. If you are teaching maybe about a snake, you must bring to class maybe a toy snake and so forth. Not really the really snake. Of course, you know what will happen in your class if you bring a snake in the class. So those are just some of the points that you need to know. No difference between structure of the presentation and the structure of the lesson presentation and public speech. You must know the structure of those ones. And yes, basically that's all. Read throughout your whole guide. Study your guide, and then you, after studying or reading through your guide, is when you now look at the presentation and try to pick out those points that are listed in the presentation and master them. And of course, this presentation is for both examination, April, August, and November. Don't pick out a certain topic because you don't know which one will be part of the examination that you are going to write. Basically, that is all. Good luck, my students. I know you are good. Most of you performed very well in the past, and I know I'm expecting the higher performance rate also during this examination. Anything else, you text me. I do not encourage calling. Text me, then I'll come back to you. Goodbye, student for English 11. The other students that are doing English 12, of course, will meet in the next presentation. Thank you.